Can you just tell me a little bit about your medium first? Because I know you don't just dabble in one thing. You're not just painting, and you tend to use a lot of wood. So tell me about that.
Yeah, wood has always been a passion of mine. Different kinds of wood. We had this lathe on the farm, which was a really old Victorian lathe. I think that it kind of came with the farm. I think, you know, cast iron, and I think my dad kind of put it back together, and, you know, connected it to the mains, which made it terribly scary. When you turned it on, you push this button and it was like that.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'd get a bit of a log from the log pile, and, you know, braddle some holes in the end and put it on, and try and make an egg, or
Oh,
some kind of shape like that, because eggs are always very nice shapes, aren't they?
nice shape.
And
Yes.
they always used to look absolutely lovely on the lathe, and you know, when you and really smooth, and then the whole thing would come to you turn it off, the whole thing would come to a halt, and you'd see this sort of really rough thing in front of you. And so, yeah, I probably needed a few lessons in sharpening the tools.
Okay. But let's talk about your youth and how that has actually helped with your artwork, because I know a lot of the even current stuff that I've seen is about where you're at. You do a lot of artwork that are place based or memory based, right? Like, when did that change? I know you loved playing with wood, but there must have been a turning point. Like, I want to actually create this as art. That's my intention.
When was the turning point?
What did you put paint on those eggs? I'm just curious. I mean,
Paint the
when
egg.
was that?
I didn't. No, I think I
Easter
think
eggs? Did you paint
it was
eggs?
sort of just, you know, the egg thing probably came from when we were at school, and we used to do the egg and spoon race, and they had these really nice ceramic eggs for the egg and spoon race, that kind of white glazed ceramic eggs, and
Mhm.
I probably just thought, I just I just want an egg, and so I'm going to create my own egg. And
My own.
in the same way as like with the horse, you know, you go to school and everyone would have little things or play people, you know, and so, because we didn't really live near the shops, I didn't you know, think that it was really possible to actually own such items. So I would just make my own versions of things that I wanted.
That's so ingenious, though. You're like, I want it, so I'll make it. It's fantastic. So I think that that brings a lot to your artwork now. It's like, I know one of my favorites that you posted. I'm sure it's like, well, you know, whatever, but I love it, was the chips bag. I'm sorry, crisps, because, you know, I'm on this side, you're on that side. The crisp bag with a dog, and that was just fantastic. It's not like you're going to go to a store and find a dog sculpture made out of a crisp bag. With it's wood, obviously, but it would tell a little story about that, because I love that, and I think that that ties to that, you know, what you did as a child. I'm going to make it. I'm just going to make it.
Yeah, that one was when myself and my wife were driving in France, and my wife swerved to avoid what she thought was a small creature scurrying across the road. But then it turned out that it was just a crisp bag caught up in the wind, and it was that sort of moment that it just occurred to me that I should make this creature out of a crisp packet. So that's why it's a French crisp. So I saved this French crisp packet, and when we got back, I thought, I'm going to create my crisp packet creature, because I suppose I quite like animals. I'm always sort of drawn to sort of funny animals, and yeah, the idea that the crisp packet could be an animal.
It was fantastic. It really was. I laughed my head off when I read the story. And I think that's what's brilliant about your Instagram posts. You're very good about telling the story behind the artwork, or giving a little tidbit of idea of where the creation came from. And when I read that, I immediately identified with it, because I know I've done the same thing. I was like, oh, I'm sure there's something in the road. Oh, that was not anything. So I loved it. I laughed and I thought, that's brilliant, because what a story piece. So anybody who purchases this piece of artwork that you've created, this sculpture, has a story to tell with that piece of art. And I think that's fantastic. That's why I said a lot of your stuff is so engaging, because it does have the story. It has the, you know, something that spoke to you. Everything, I think, that's what I've learned. Everything that you do, it has spoke to you in some form or fashion. Let's talk about your sculptures, because I know you have a lot in your studio. I know that I've seen the ones that are up on the shelf, a lot of people, figures, and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit about those, and where the inspiration for them came from?
Well, I've always made things and drawn things. I mean, I've generally, yeah, I don't see them as sort of two separate things. When I first start doing any kind of artwork, it's usually based on the idea of a place, and there's usually people in that place, and there might be a little narrative idea that's going on. And so quite often I'll start off with a sketchbook. You know, if I go anywhere, I'll take my sketchbook and I'll draw, but that's sort of not the end of it. I mean, what I normally do is I'll take that sketchbook away, and in the evenings I'll look at my sketchbook and I'll remember things that happened at the time, because things obviously come and go very quickly, don't they?
Yes.
And so there's lots of things that you miss, or you think, oh, I remember there was that person there, and so that might become a painting at a later point. But at the same time, if I ever do an exhibition, I always like the idea of sort of mixing different mediums. So
Yes, yes.
I'll have, you know, a picture, and it might have some people in it, but then I might take those people and I might create them as like a 3D figure as well. And so you might see one of the characters in a picture, and then you might see it as a 3D thing. And I also like the way, you know, you can put paint onto a bit of wood, and I sort of like just the way you might have a bit of bright color on that wood, and you can still see the wood showing through.
Oh, here, yes.
I just, yeah, it's just the sort of, it's trying to, it's not having that kind of boundary of, yeah, this is the painting, I'm going to draw a picture of that person. It's like, it's just take the person out of the picture and put it into the exhibition, so it becomes a little collection of
Right.
objects and pictures, a bit like a museum. Like, you know, I spent so much of my youth traveling around looking at museums, and I always love going to little local museums and seeing pictures on the wall, and objects in cabinets, and
Yes. Oh, I love that. That makes so much sense, because you're right. I have noticed some of your figures being represented in paintings as well. So thank you for, you know, letting me know why I saw them. I was like, did I see that figure before? But now I know why. And that's lovely. I love hearing that you're bringing it like 3D. But it's kind of like it's more of a collection, not just to be independent of each other. The whole thing with it to be viewed like that. I love that. That's fantastic.